Hello, everybody. I am David Kramer. I'm the director of the library here at the Jewish Theological Seminary. It is my pleasure to welcome you to what promises to be an absolutely fantastic program. I began speaking with Hélène about this months ago now, right? And I'm glad that it's finally coming to both figurative, metaphorical, and literal fruition. So, I mean, just great. On the practical level, before we begin in substance, please keep yourselves on mute. I will be very aggressive about finding you if you stray off of mute and muting you as host of this event. You can expect that we'll be going for about an hour, which will include Hélène's discussion of two of her books relating to Sephardi cooking, as well as cooking demonstration, as you know, and we're excited for both. And I also want to point out that this is being recorded, so be careful not to stray because you will be recorded if that happens. In any case, again, absolutely wonderful to be here. Speaking on behalf of the JTS Library, but also on behalf of myself. Some of you know that I've done some work in the history of Jewish eating practices, and I have the widest appetite possible for learning about Jewish eating and eating practices and cuisine. So I expect myself to learn a lot from this particular presentation. It's also important to give credit to the fact that we are straying beyond the cuisines that many Jews who have some kind of connection to the Jewish Theological Seminary might be more accustomed to, and broadening our horizons is wonderful. So, you know, we're excited, and we hope that you will be excited as well. Let me introduce our speaker. Dr. Hélène Jawhara Piñer is a PhD in medieval history and the history of food. She teaches medieval history at two French universities, Bordeaux-Montaigne and Tours. She's been awarded by the Broom and Allen Fellowship from the American Sephardi Federation in 2018, dedicated to recognizing impressive academic accomplishments and service on behalf of the Sephardic community, as well as encouraging continued excellence in this field of Sephardi studies. At the beginning of October 2021, the Society for Crypto-Judaic Studies also awarded her the David Gitlitz Emerging Scholar Prize for her accomplishment and engagement in Sephardic history research. Her recipes have appeared in Sephardi World Weekly, Tablets, The Forward, Table Magazine, and others. There's a lot for us to read and enjoy here. She has two books, one of which is already on screen. I was going to go like that to put it on screen, but you've already got it. So I can, I guess, do it double. The first, which is already on screen, is Sephardi Cooking and History, Recipes of the Jews of Spain and the Diaspora from the 13th Century to Today. It is a cookbook combining rich culinary history and Jewish heritage to serve up over 50 culturally significant recipes. Steeped in the history of Sephardic Jews in the diaspora, these recipes are expertly collected from such diverse sources as medieval cookbooks, Inquisition trials, medical treatises, poems, and so forth, multiple original languages. I could go on here, but I'm sure that you want to hear Hélène, more than you want to hear the official description. The second book is Jews, Food, and Spain, the oldest medieval Spanish cookbook and the Sephardic culinary heritage, which is based upon her doctoral thesis. Again, there's much more to say, but I think the more important thing, Hélène, is your presentation. We are thrilled that you are here to present to us. So let's get going.
Wow, thank you, David. Before beginning this lecture, of course, I really would like to thank you, David, for inviting me to be part of this wonderful and amazing program of Between the Lines. It's such an honor for me to present my work to the Jewish Theological Seminary. So thank you so much. The purpose of this lecture is to present the 2 books I wrote and to consider them as a reflection of the culinary heritage of the Jews of Spain and the diaspora. The first one is a cookbook called Sephardi Cooking: The History, Recipes of the Jews of Spain and the Diaspora from the 13th century to today, whose foreword has been written by my friend and mentor, the late Professor David Getlitz. The second one is a new one. In fact, the launch is today because it's a new one. It's an academic cookbook called Jews, Food and Spain, the oldest medieval Spanish cookbook and the Sephardic culinary heritage, whose foreword has been written by Paul Friedman from Yale University. Let's start. Addressing the theme of Jews of Spain is not easy. Not that the subject has not been treated masterfully by certain colleagues, such as Jane Gerber, Joseph Yerushalmi, Itzhak Vaer, and Chaim Benart, and others. It imposes a study of the long term from the 2nd to the 15th century, and then after the official date of the edict of the expulsion of 1492, with the existence of the converso who remained in this territory. A study of longue durée, which is an essential characteristic, according to Fernand Braudel, of the study of history. And this longue durée is the study of a civilization. A longue durée during which the Jews of the Iberian Peninsula successively experienced Roman, Visigotic, Muslim, and Christian domination. The Jews of the Iberian Peninsula never constituted the majority and therefore never ruled. The studies concerning the Jews of the Sephardic diaspora, we mean the Jews who fled the Iberian Peninsula to settle in new territories such as Morocco, Italy, Turkey, and other countries bordering the Mediterranean basin and on the other side of the Atlantic, have been efficiently carried out by historians such as David Getlitz, Seymour Lehman, Anita Nowitzki, and Bolsaun Lewin, and many others. They highlighted the relationships that existed between the Jews of the Old World and those of the New World. Consequently, both the study over the long term and the territorial extension need to be taken into account as they are essential characteristics in Jewish studies. From this purely historical observation testifying of the twists and turns of the extensive history of the Sephardic Jews, there is a field of study rich in information that shows the daily practices of the Jews at the same time as it reveals the social, political, religious, and economic context in which the Jews of Spain and the diaspora lived, and this is food. Food choices are only one of several factors relating to eating that communicate volumes concerning a people's identity, said David Kramer in Jewish Eating and Identity. However, works dealing with the food and the culinary practices of the Jews of Spain and the diaspora remain the poor relation in food studies, because few historians have focused solely on this term. Therefore, the work of the late David Getlitz is unique. Studying the consumption and practices of the Jews of Spain and the diaspora since the Middle Ages leads to studying and understanding how their culinary heritage was formed. Given the inherent spatial and temporal breadth of this subject, what I offer in Sephardi cookbook reflects some of my research. It does not pretend to present in an exhaustive way the cuisine of the Sephardic Jews of Spain and the diaspora, which spans almost 800 years. It was therefore necessary to make choices, and the dishes, 57 dishes, that I wanted to present in this cookbook are those mentioned in the sources that I studied during my 6 years of studies. They are the ones which seems to me the best reflect the tastes and flavors of the given period, but also those which are able to testify to a singular social and political climate, since the vast majority of these dishes were prepared in societies rife with anti-Semitism, where food served as a tool to denounce the liturgical practices of the Jews. What I pretend in Jews, Food and Spain book is a deeper investigation of my doctorate investigation and post-doctorate research, using the old medieval Spanish cookbook to highlight the Sephardic culinary heritage. After Paul Friedman's foreword, the book opens on 3 parts. Each one contains 4 chapters. The first deals with the Jews' place in the construction of an Andalusian cuisine from the 12th to the 14th century, and closes with a reflection on the eggplant as the Jewishness marker. The second part aims to present the legacy of the multicultural cuisine of Al-Andalus from the 14th century to the 17th century, evolution and perception of Jewish food. In this part, I focused on Christian dominated cookbooks and also I focused on the Iberian literature as a witness to food discrimination against Jews, and this part ends with the trials of the Inquisition. The third part and last part pretend to understand the Sephardic Jewish culinary heritage between rebirth and the desire to recognize a past legacy. It starts with the Kitab al-Tabir, the cookbook, the first cookbook of the Iberian Peninsula, which is in fact my main source, and ends with various recipes. All in all, what I propose to you today is to explain to what extent the 2 books reflect the culinary heritage of the Jews of Spain and the diaspora since the late Middle Ages, and how and why I wrote them. First, the dishes featured in Sephardi derive from historical sources, be they culinary, judicial, literary, or medical, from the East and the West. Its recipes were prepared over the years as part of my doctoral research in history, and which traces and uncovers the existence of dishes prepared for and by Sephardic Jews. Since Sephardi is a cookbook drawn from history, it seems logical that the culinary source is the first type of source I consulted, and in particular, the cookbook. 3 cookbooks were written in the Iberian Peninsula during the Middle Ages. 2 written in Arabic in the 13th century, the Kitab al-Tabir, which means in Arabic, the cookbook, and the Fudalat al-Hiwan, and another one written in Catalan in the 14th century, the sensovi, for a total of over 1,000 recipes. The Kitab al-Tabikh was my main source, and it is the main document also used in Jews, food, and Spain. This is the sensovi, and the previous one was the Fudalat al-Khiwan, the second cookbook. This is the one written in Catalan. The Kitab al-Tabikh cookbook contains 462 recipes and is unique because it is the first cookbook from the Muslim West known to date, and because it is the first and only one to mention explicitly Jewish recipes, 6 Jewish recipes. This means that the word Jewish or Jew, Yehud in Arabic, is written in the title of the recipes. So we can find 2 recipes made with chicken, 2 recipes with partridge, a recipe with ground meat and meatballs under a cake form, and a recipe for eggplant with lamb. As we can see in the PowerPoint, we can look at this slide, but all the slides are just written the same way. The recipes are not presented as in a contemporary recipe book. There is no ingredient list and almost never quantity or indication of cooking time. However, we can sometimes read that the dish must be cooked in the evening until the next day. This clarification is, of course, reminiscent of the preparation of meals for Shabbat, a cooking method that will be used by the Inquisition to identify and denounce the Jewish conversos. Other recipes from the Kitab al-Tabikh are recipes that were prepared by the Jews. We know this thanks to the method of their preparation and thanks to the permanence of these recipes in Sephardi cuisine, and especially in Morocco until today. The recipe of mufleta that we are going to prepare at the end of this program is one of the examples of the permanence of Jewish culinary practices. The only other cookbook that contains explicitly Jewish recipes, 2 recipes, is a cookbook written in the Muslim East, a century after the Andalusian cookbook of the Kitab al-Tabikh, and it is called the Kitab al-Wath al-Khatima al-Mutahada, the description of familiar foods. It is an anonymous cookbook written in Cairo at the end of the 14th century. There is a recipe called Makabib al-Lanuha al-Yahud, the meatballs cursed by the Jews. This telling attribute speaks volumes about the contemporary social outlook towards Jews in the region. The second recipe, which is in fact the same recipe as the first one, to mention the word Jew in the title, does not appear until the 18th century. After almost 400 years, the first meatball recipe has lost the word cursed and now uses another type of meat, and it is entitled Makabib al-Yahud, so the meatballs of the Jews. This is the manuscript. This is the cookbook from the Muslim East, one on the left from the 14th century. This is the one that mentioned the cursed meatballs, and the other one on the right, just Makabib al-Yahud, so meatballs of the Jews. This is the dishes I decided to recreate. So you have just ground meat for the recipe of the 14th century, and lean meat like chicken or partridge meat for the Maccabee Yahud, midboat of the Jews of the 17th, 18th century. Another type of source I use concerns medicine. The Regimen of Health, Tadbir al-Siha, is a famous medical treatise written in Arabic by the very famous Andalusian doctor and rabbi from Cordoba, Moshe ben Maymun Sephardi, known as Maimonides or the Rambam. It gives numerous indications of the ingredients and dishes which must be consumed to remain in a good health, asserting that food is the best medicine, just as the Greek physician Galen had maintained many centuries prior. The penultimate type of main source used comes from literature. In my book, Jews, Food, and Spain, the book Jews, Food, and Spain offers a deeper analysis of many sources that belongs to the Spanish literature, like the Lozana Andaluza from Francisco de Licado, or Los Baños de Argel from Cervantes, for example, and many others. In the Sephardi cookbook, as it is a cookbook, it's quite different, of course, I example the case with the Cancionero del siglo XV, which is, in fact, a book with poems, where there is a copla, like a poem, composed of satirical verses intended for the converso Pedro González and written by Rodrigo de Cota, who was also a converso. The verses mention Jewish dishes at Christian banquets, and in particular at the wedding of the grandson of Diego Arias Dávila, Diego Arias Dávila is mentioned very often in Spanish Inquisition Trials. This wedding is a wedding between a converso bridegroom and a Christian bride, where the absence, the lack of pork and fish without scales has been compensated by eggplants. Talking about eggplants, I love eggplants, and it is so Sephardi. Eggplants act like the red flag in Sephardi, but also in Jews, Food, and Spain. It is everywhere, in cookbooks, in literature, in Inquisition Trials. In Jews, Food, and Spain, it occupies a whole chapter and is mentioned in several other chapters. In the Sephardi cookbook, the eggplant is also a whole chapter. Eggplant is very often when it's time to identify and to mock Jewish practices. In fact, eggplant is the former Jew's apple, and one of the first names of the apple is in Latin malum insanum, which means the bad apple. In Sephardi, I decided to write a special chapter, as I told previously, on eggplant dishes, but other recipes in the cookbook also contain eggplants. Eggplant, in particular, a sweet recipe typical of the Jews of Morocco called letruario or dulce de berenjena, which is a sweet dish made with very small eggplants. And this dish is also one of the dishes eaten in Dominican Republic by Jews and non-Jews. Finally, I will talk about Inquisition Trials. They are my favorite source. They reveal so much concerning daily life and political and religious restrictions about converso practices, whether the converso lived in the Mediterranean or not. And food and culinary practices are at the center of denunciations. The richness of the Inquisition Trials is unparalleled They also reveal the inquisitors' knowledge of Judaism, be they Spanish, Brazilian, Portuguese, Mexican, etc. Without the scrupulously detailed Inquisition trials, we would have little information about the dietary and culinary practices of the converted Jews, whether they lived in the Iberian Peninsula or across the Atlantic. Consequently, without knowing it, the Tribunal of the Holy Office participated in the understanding and transmission of the savoir-faire of the Jews, whose eating habits must have been so characteristic of their cuisine that they were recording in writing. This is how we get that the emblematic dish of the Jews of Spain, the most mentioned in the trials of the Inquisition, is adafina. This is an example of Inquisition trial. Adafina is a dish which bears several names, different names, like trasnochado, adafina, ani, jamin, caliente, names which with Arabic, Hebrew, and Spanish etymological roots. The trial of the Inquisition of Mexico City, for example, however, testified to certain hybrid practices between Judaism and Christianity, especially concerning the unleavened bread consumption. A crossbreeding that is little used in Spanish trials. In Sephardi, you will find some example of dishes prepared by the Jews of the Sephardic diaspora of Mexico or Salvador de Bahia in Brazil, and for which they were condemned. Here you have just an example. This is the meat pie of the Fernandez Converso from Bahia, Brazil. This recipe is based on an Inquisition trial which dates back to the end of the 16th century, and which explains how the Fernandez family from Bahia were reported for their Sabbath cooking, preparing a baked dish of meat with onions, olive oil, seeds, spices, and other ingredients. This pie was sealed with dough all around. Okay, it's like I am quoting, in fact, the Inquisition trial. Culinary heritage can be studied if it is still alive. As a result, the Sephardi cookbook ends with a section whose sole purpose is to highlight the importance of the culinary heritage while underlining the reality of food and culinary adaptation by conversos throughout the history of the Sephardic Jews. It supports the words of my late friend and colleague, David Getlitz. I quote him. The Jews of the Sephardic diaspora incorporated the product and techniques of those new lands into their repertoire of Sabbath and holiday creations. This is the end, almost the end. At the first time, in fact, I hadn't thought of publishing the Sephardi cookbook. It was only when I presented my book, Jews, Food, and Spain, to my publisher, Academic Studies Press, and they told me, oh, we want to publish both books. That, in fact, I remembered the words of David, and he told me it was for the Society of Crypto-Judaic Studies. He told me, publish this book and write it in English. David's foreword to Sephardi contains one of my favorite sentences. Sephardi's spine is the resilience of 1,000 years of Sephardic cooks, living in minority enclaves surrounded by powerful, attractive, and frequently unfriendly majority cultures. Cooks who remained the essence of their Jewish culinary heritage and transmitted it. Despite the hatred and fear, the kitchens of Sephardi descendants are and will be forever cooking Jewish. In fact, just to conclude, what I desired with writing Sephardic Cooking the History is to present the Sephardim of the world as the best representatives and witnesses of a cuisine that continues to live and thrive today, whose culinary history and food practices need to be known and recognized. It has often been written that Jews inhabited a language where the people of the book identified themselves with specific culinary practices, especially for Sabbath and for other religious holidays. Jews' food in Spain, by analyzing the relationship between linguistic patterns, scriptural modes, and culinary grammar, finally aims to give to the nostalgia of Sepharad a scientific legitimacy. Thank you.
Wonderful. That's the conclusion of your discussion of the books, but now comes the cooking demonstration. So let's make sure that no one misunderstands. This is not the end of the program. Thank you for giving us a way to purchase the book at a discount, and I'm sure many of us will. Let's go to the kitchen now. Before you do that, though, let me just say that there will be an opportunity for questions to be asked at the end. To make it a little bit easier, if you would just drop your questions into the chat function, I will collect them and I will share them with Hélène after the cooking demonstration. So Hélène, why don't you unshare your screen so that the images of your cooking demonstration appear more larger on the, there we go. Great, perfect.
Is it okay?
Yes, that's great. And
wonderful.
Okay, go right ahead. We're now, and of course the problem is that we won't be able to taste it, but we'll try it ourselves. Go right ahead.
Okay, but you are all welcome to my kitchen and my house, so it's not a problem. So yes, we are going, in fact, to put in practices what I have just briefly presented before. We are going to cook mufleta. I'm sure everybody knows what is mufleta. This is the dish we prepare, in fact, at the end of Passover, to celebrate the end of Passover. We are going to do this. Why I choose to do this recipe and not another one? Because in fact, this recipe is written in the oldest Spanish medieval cookbook. This cookbook written in Arabic with this recipe, but this recipe is not one of the 6 recipes which bear the names in which we can find the word Jewish. In fact, it is one of my discovery. Reading, in fact, the more than 500 recipes of the Kitab al-Tabikh, I discovered this recipe. And this recipe bears the name of murakaba in Arabic. And in fact, this recipe is not nowadays prepared by Muslims. This is a recipe, even if the word Jewish is not mentioned in the title of the recipe, we know, and the practices of the Sephardi nowadays prove this, that this recipe of murakaba was prepared by and for Jews in the 13th century. So let's do that. It's quite easy. Of course, you will need yeast, just a little, okay? This is fresh yeast, but you can use just really little of active dry yeast. You need all-purpose flour.
Elaine, before you go on, are you using your phone to also to show, or just one screen?
Oh, I'm going to use both.
You're going to use both, just
here.
checking. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah.
That's fine.
And then I'm going to talk to see just on the other one.
Okay.
So you need almost 3 cups flour, 1 cup semolina. This is this, and salt. And you need 1 cup water. Okay, and then just after melted butter, and with a little of oil, but not olive oil. So what we are going to do right now is to mix everything. So let's start with the flour. Put it in big bowl. So here is the semolina. Okay, you can put here the salt and the fresh yeast. But as I told you before, you can put active dry yeast here. That's correct. Once you have everything ready, just mix a little the flour and the semolina with your hand. Okay, that's good. Once you have done this, this is the moment to put the water. You don't need to put lukewarm water. You can just use regular one, not boiling water, not hot water, just water. Okay, and you start putting almost all the water, but it is better to do this just little by little. So with your finger, not the whole hand, start stirring everything. Okay. When it has this consistency, you can continue. And we are going to mix everything together. Okay. So it's almost 3 cups flour for 1 cup coarse semolina and 1 cup water, a little of active yeast, dry yeast, and salt, of course. If you have a look to the recipe of the 13th century, it is also mentioned that you have to put a little of eggs. So nowadays, I do not put egg in the mufleta because we do not need this. But as we are going to follow the steps of the old recipe, we're going to put, this is 1 beaten egg. I'm going to put just a little because I don't want to, I want to follow the old recipe. So let's do that. It depends of as the flours are all different. Maybe you need to add a little water. So if it's like that, you don't need. In fact, just be sure that there is no more semolina and flour in the bowl, stick in the bowl. Okay, I'm going to add a little water here. Okay, so you have to press. Don't be afraid. It's very, very easy to do. Okay. So once it's like that, you can put your dough this way and you have to knead it for about at least 10 minutes. We are not going to do this for 10 minutes because we do not have time, but I'm only going to show you how we are going to do. I'm also going to turn on my pan. So it will be ready for after. So here I show you, you have to take your dough and push this way. And then take it back and do the same. And you have to do this for about 10 minutes. So then after, you don't have to go to the gym, okay, or work out. So because you have done mufleta, so that's perfect. You are doing 2 things in one. So that's a good thing, you know, that's a good point. Or you can do 3 things because after you are going to eat the mufleta. So mufleta is such a great dish. So a great pastry. This is an amazing. You always find a great moment when people come to your house to eat mufleta. So let's do this for about 10 minutes, okay? I'm gonna stop and I'm going to show you how it looks like after 10 minutes, okay? Because I've already prepared the balls. So once your dough is this way, it will be, it will look better because the more you knead the dough, the more elastic it is. So this one, of course, needs to be kneaded more, but we're going to stop this and I'm going to show you what we're going to do. So with this, you are going to take the dough and with your 2 fingers, you are going to take this and press. And here you have a ball, okay? So I'm going to put the dough in the first bowl. Here are the balls of dough, okay? They have been set aside. So what we are going to do is we are going to take 1 bowl. We are going also to take melted butter, and this butter you are going to add to this melted butter a little of oil, neutral oil, okay? Just the regular one. And now let's make the mufleta. Take a little of your melted butter and oil and just put a little here. Take 1 bowl, okay? And just start to do this way, okay? It is very important not to make a hole, okay, in the dough. Okay, I'm going to show you here. Then take a little more. So that's right. If you are in diet, making mufleta is not a good idea because there's a lot of butter inside, but it's so good. So you have, in fact, to make the dough very, very, very thin, okay? Good. A little more butter. Okay. This is great. Okay, my pan is, I turn my frying or my pan on very high temperature. Okay. So once we are here, okay, you are going to take the top here and to cover it on the middle. Take a little more butter here. And do the same with the bottom part here and cover. A little more butter and then take this part and cover it. And the other part. And that's great. All is done. So now this is the first part. Okay, this is completed. You can see why then once it's cooked, it will be like different sheets, in fact. Okay, so here we are. Once you have done that, so I've done my squares before because I wanted to show you. Okay, so you do this and you put them on a greasy and oily tray, baking tray. Okay, and you do all the balls. Okay, once you have done that, you are going to take your frying pan. I'm going to, I hope it's not a problem. I'm going to show you. Not to make bad things, just, this is my book. Okay, so now you're here. And you are going to, I'm going to show you, you're going to take your pan. This is a very special one, but you can use a regular frying pan. I just hope you see this well. Is it okay, David?
Yes, it looks good. We can see it well.
Okay, can you smell it? Can you smell it? This is a good question.
I'm struggling to smell it, but I think I can get the first little bit.
So what we are going to do now is to flatten the mufleta, okay? So take your mufleta here, okay? And then start to press it a little and to make a round, okay? This is like to make a round form, okay? Perfect. The method of the mufleta is to cook one mufleta, one part of the dough, and then to prepare the other one and to flip, in fact, to turn upside down the first one and to put the new one over. So let's do that. I'm going to show you. So while this one is cooking, I'm going to do the same with the other one, okay? So I'm going to make it under the form of like a round. Okay. Okay, so this one is here cooking. I'm going to turn it upside down, and then I'm going to put this new one over. Okay, and this is how we make mufleta. So here we have, okay, so just turn it, put a little of butter and put this one over. Great. Once we have done this, okay, let's do the same with the other. So this one, I've done one big one. So take this one, okay, and start to make the third layer. This one is a big one. I should have taken one which is not too big. Okay, So we are here at the third step. Okay, we are going to flip this one, the two ones, and put this over. Oh, I'm going to cut this. Okay, put a little of butter, and then take another bowl. Okay, actually, as I did not prepare all the round mufleta before, I have to continue and do it very, very fast. I'm going to show you how to make it quickly. Okay, so do this. Okay. Okay, little more butter. And just shape it as a round shape. Okay, once it's here, just flip it, put a little of butter, okay, and make it, and put the other one over. And this way you can continue. The old recipe says that you can do this as if it is like a tower. So you can continue and until you want. Okay, if you have a lot of guests that comes to your house, and I'm sure it was the case to celebrate Passover with mufleta since the late Middle Ages. So you can do a lot of layers. Okay. Okay, I'm going to stop as I want to show you how we hand. Okay, so here we are. I really hope that you enjoy this recipe. It is really an old recipe, and the most surprising and incredible, it's not surprising, the most crazy and amazing thing is that this recipe continues to be prepared by the Sephardim nowadays. So, and mainly by many chefs also. Let's do this and put another layer of dough. Great. So here we are. I'm going to turn off my fan. Okay, so here we are. I just add a little of butter. And now the final touch is to add honey, because the honey is very, very important for this recipe. I'm going to show you how it looks like here. So here we are. Can you see it well, David?
Yes.
Great. So here we are. It's very hot, but I'm going to show you. So you can see the different layers. Ooh. I'm going to show you here. So here you can see the different layers. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 or 6. So here we are. Now, what we need to do is to put them in a plate. Here. We need to put this in a plate. And the final touch is to pour honey over. So here we are. In the medieval, in the Kitab al-Tarikh, in the old medieval Spanish cookbook, you can also find a mufleta made with dates. This is with layers, dates, in fact, between the layers of dough. And this is very surprising, but it's, I ate them, and it's very, very, very good. So here we are. I'm going to show you here how it looks like. Of course, you can continue with different kinds of layers. And once it's time to eat, you have to take one here. And the last part is my favorite one, is eating the mufleta.
Wow. Okay. Wow. Looks fantastic.
David, please.
Yeah.
I have a lot.
I'm on my way. I'm on my way. You know, I didn't ask at the beginning, just so that everyone knows, remind us of where you are, where you're cooking from.
Yes, it would be interesting to know.
So, but where are you? Where's your home? Can you hear me? Elaine, can you hear me?
Yes, sorry, it has cut.
Okay.
I'm from France. I live in Bordeaux. It is in the south of France. 6 hours driving from Paris, but only 2 hours from the Spanish border. This is very good for me to see my family.
Wonderful.
So, yes.
Okay, so a couple of questions. First of all, very practical questions about the recipe. Someone asked about a cooking surface. Could you use a cast iron pan for this? What's the best surface to use for the mufleta?
The cast iron pan is perfect. This
Okay,
is the best one.
Great. And another person wanted to know whether non-Jews make this or a related dish, or is this really, you know, a dedicated Sephardi Jewish dish?
Yes, it's Sephardi and mainly Moroccan.
Oh, okay. Well, someone actually said they've got relatives from Morocco. And they asked, this goes back to your more general research about the, they have experience with Moroccan Jewish practice of not mixing dairy and fish. Do you know about that practice, and can you say something about it?
I've read and heard from this. This is very special because, in fact, sometimes in Muslim families, you can find this very particular practice. I think it is more, it depends more from the territory of the family. It's not a generalization, in fact. But that's true. And this practice is, as I told you, is also shared by Muslims from Morocco. So that's interesting.
Oh, very interesting. Yes. And going back to earlier on in your presentation, someone asked, as you were speaking about it, what's the meaning of cursed meatballs? What's the curse part?
Yeah, super interesting. I have been investigating on this term because, of course, the term la nouha really means cursed. But why Jews would have cursed meatballs? This is very intriguing. We do not have any answer, so I'm so sorry. We only can make hypotheses concerning this. But maybe it could be because some meatballs could have contained tendons from the meat, and Jews would have cursed them. But in fact, we don't know. In fact, but what is very important, maybe, or what is the main importance is could be that. As the term cursed is written, this means that there was a recognition of a difference in culinary practices. I mean, Jewish culinary practices and Muslim culinary practices, because in Egypt, there were Muslim mainly. So this is, and the term cursed is very strong. So it's not that they unlike those meatballs, it's cursed. So it also reveals a context.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
A special context.
And lastly, someone asked about the holiday connection. You made reference to the fact that many of the dishes or the recipes that are identifiable as Jewish are Jewish because of the cooking method that relates to the Sabbath, for example. Mm-hmm. Or mufleta was customarily eaten at the end of Pesach, of Passover. Do those dishes that are identifiably Jewish tend to relate to specific occasions, specific Jewish occasions, like the Sabbath or Passover? Or do we have other recipes or foods, say, going back to eggplant, aubergine, that are connected to Jewish cuisine and with no particular connection to a holiday or the like?
In fact, you point out a very interesting point. In the Inquisition Trials, of course, what is enlightened is that Jews have been denounced because they followed their culinary practices in order to celebrate their Jewish holiday. So, of course, as all the Jewish holidays are related with very special or cooking method or special food, it was easier, in fact, for the inquisitors to denounce them. So, of course, that's why in my cookbook Sephardi, I did not include a chapter on the Sephardic holiday, the dishes for the Sephardic holidays, because in fact, all the dishes are for Jewish holidays, all the dishes, because in fact, Jews were denounced because they were celebrating their holidays, their Jewish holidays. So all the dishes are to celebrate, in order to celebrate Jewish holidays. And of course, when the Jewish holiday was more than one day, like Pesach, like Passover, or like Yom Kippur, more than one day, it was easier for the inquisitors to be able to denounce them, because it was on the longue durée. So but for the Sabbath, it was a little different, because the Sabbath for Sabbath, so they had to seal, in fact, their dishes. So for Sabbath, it was the cooking method that was used as a tool to denounce and to identify the Jews and Jewish practices. But on the other way, the only exception we have concerning the denunciation and then identification of Jewish practices mainly without relation with Jewish holidays, is the use of the eggplant. Because Jews loved eggplant, and the Sephardim loved eggplant, and they were consuming a lot of eggplants, and that's why there is no main relation with the eggplant with the holiday. They were in fact denounced for eating eggplant because the Sephardim loved eggplant. So it was also a way to identify them. And eggplant, olive oil, and garlic, the three sisters.
Okay, that's great. I was going to say, I mean, it sounds like eggplant served in Sfarad as garlic served in Ashkenaz, with the Jewish connection. Okay, this is absolutely wonderful. Thank you so much for speaking about your books.
My pleasure.
and about the cooking presentation. I'm sure there will be those who have been watching and will go and try it out themselves, although they may need your cookbook to support the steps that they take. Everybody who's been here, thank you so much for joining us. And we hope that you will join us at programs like this sponsored by the Library of the Jewish Theological Seminary in the future. Okay, bye-bye, and thank you, Hélène.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much to everyone. I recognized a lot of people that just contacted me, like Dina, like Natalie, like Sibel, like a lot of people. So thank you so much for being here. Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.